The first time it happens, you're standing in the break room, stirring powdered creamer into coffee you don't even want. Marcus, from accounts, is talking about his mother's diagnosis. Stage 3. The words hang in the fluorescent air between you, and you feel it. That familiar ache behind your sternum, that automatic reaching out of something inside you toward someone else's pain. But then you glance at the clock. The meeting starts in 4 minutes. The presentation you've been building for 3 weeks, the one that could shift everything, could finally move you out of this gray partition existence into something that resembles forward motion. And you feel the ache begin to retract. Not disappear, not yet. Just pull back slightly, like a hand reaching for something hot and reconsidering. That's terrible, you say. You say it well. You've always been good at this part, the tone, the eye contact, the appropriate pause before speaking. I'm really sorry, Marcus. He nods. His eyes are wet. He wants to keep talking. You can feel the pressure of all the words he hasn't said yet, all the fear he hasn't processed, building behind his expression like water against a dam. We should grab lunch this week, you say. Talk properly. You won't. You already know this as you're saying it. But the words serve their function. They create an exit, a socially acceptable bridge between this moment and the door. But you make it to the meeting with 90 seconds to spare. The presentation goes well. That night, lying in bed, you think about Marcus's face, the way hope flickered in his eyes when you mentioned lunch, that small, desperate hope that someone might sit with him in his fear. You think about how easy it would have been to be late. 4 minutes, maybe 5. Just long enough to let him finish one complete thought about his dying mother. But the meeting. You turn over. The pillow is cool against your cheek. It was an important meeting, you tell yourself. There will be other opportunities to talk to Marcus. The timing was just bad, that's all. Bad timing. You fall asleep quickly. This will become easier. 3 months into the new position, you stop counting the small retreats. The title is Senior Project Coordinator. The salary is better. The office has a door that closes, not glass, actual wood, actual privacy. You understand now why people claw for this. Not the money, though that matters. The door. The ability to decide who enters. The ability to make your face your own for hours at a time. The team you manage has 7 people. You learn their names in the first week, their work styles in the second, their vulnerabilities by the end of the first month. Dana cries under pressure, not openly. She excuses herself, goes to the bathroom, comes back with reddened eyes she doesn't acknowledge. You know because you've seen the pattern. Twice now, difficult deadlines have sent her disappearing for 10, 15 minutes. Before, you might have taken her aside, asked if everything was okay. Not because it was required, but because seeing someone struggle activated something in you. A compulsion toward connection, toward easing. Now you make a note in the file you keep on your laptop, the one labeled Team Dynamics. You write, DM, stress response poor, monitor for high-stakes assignments. You're not being cruel, you're being efficient. There's a difference. There has to be a difference. Elena calls on a Tuesday evening. You're at your desk, 7 p.m., reviewing next quarter's projections. Her name appears on your phone screen, and you feel something complicated move through you. Warmth and resistance in equal measure. You were roommates in college. Best friends, the kind who share the same brain, finishing each other's sentences, knowing each other's fears like your own. She was there when your father left. So you were there when her engagement fell apart. The history between you is thick, rooted. But lately, her calls feel like interruptions. Hey, you say, phone pressed between shoulder and ear, eyes still scanning numbers. She talks about her job, the nonprofit where she works, the funding cuts, the families they're failing. Her voice carries the particular weight of someone who still believes in things, still lets the suffering of strangers land in her body like physical blows. You remember being like this. You remember how it felt to read news stories and cry, to see homeless people and feel your chest crack open, to carry the world's wounds as if they belonged to you. That capacity for absorption used to feel like virtue. Now it just feels like a leak, an inefficiency. That sounds really hard, you say. The words come out perfectly shaped, kind, concerned, empty of everything but their function. It is, Elena says. But I keep thinking about this one family, Maria and her kids. They've been through so much, and now with the funding. She trails off. When she speaks again, her voice is smaller. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how to keep doing this. This is an invitation. You recognize it. She's reaching for you, asking you to meet her in that place where pain becomes shared, becomes lighter through division. You glance at your laptop. The cursor blinks in a cell you haven't finished editing. You're doing important work, you say. Don't forget that. It's what someone would say. Someone caring, someone present. The words form a perfect simulation of support. But you're not there. You're not with her in that kitchen where she's probably standing, wine glass in hand, shoulders carrying the accumulated weight of other people's crises. You're here, in your office, already calculating how many more minutes this call will take. Thanks, she says. I just needed to hear a friendly voice, I guess. You talk for another 8 minutes. You laugh at the right moments. You make a sound of sympathy when she mentions a co-worker's passive-aggressive email. You perform every note of the friendship with technical precision. When you hang up, you feel nothing. Not relief, not guilt. Nothing. You finish the projections. You go home. You don't think about Elena again until her text arrives 3 days later, which you answer the following morning with an appropriate emoji and a brief sentence about being swamped. She stops calling as often after that. It's easier this way. The promotion conversation happens in Victoria's office. She's 2 levels above you, sharp-featured, sparing with words. You've studied her the way you study everyone now, cataloging strengths, weaknesses, pressure points. She values results, directness. She has no patience for emotional processing, for lengthy explanations, and for anything that smells like excuse. You've become fluent in her language. We're restructuring the regional division, she says. There's an opportunity. The role she describes would require relocation, a different city, distance from everyone you've known, everything that might remind you of previous versions of yourself. You feel something flicker at this, a ghost of the resistance you might once have mounted. But ghosts don't vote. Ghosts just watch. I'm interested, you say. It would mean making some difficult decisions. Quickly, the team there has... She pauses, selecting words. Legacy issues. Dead weight. Sentiment. You understand what she's telling you. The job requires someone willing to cut. To look at human beings and see only their function, their productivity, their value to the machine. I understand, you say. Victoria studies you. You let her look, There's nothing on your face she won't find useful. No flicker of doubt. No residual softness that might signal weakness. The last person we put in this position, she says, couldn't handle it. Got attached. Started making exceptions. She says this word like it tastes bad. Exceptions. We need someone who understands that efficiency requires a certain clarity. You think about the word attached, how it's being used here as a failing, a contaminant. You think about Marcus, whose mother died 2 months ago. You saw him in the hallway last week. He looked smaller somehow, like grief had compressed him. You nodded, kept walking. You think about Dana, whom you transferred off the high-profile project last month. She asked to meet with you, voice shaking, wanting to understand. You gave her 7 minutes, used phrases like strategic reallocation and playing to your strengths. You didn't mention the file on your laptop, the calculation that made her expendable. You think about Elena, who you haven't called in 6 weeks. Who texted last Sunday with something about coffee, catching up, I miss you, and you replied 48 hours later with, things are crazy, soon, attachments. They feel like anchors now, like ropes tied around your ankles, pulling you toward depths where you'd have to feel things, process things, accommodate the inconvenient weight of other people's interiority. I can provide that clarity, you tell Victoria. She smiles. You've never seen her smile before. It looks like recognition. The new city is gray in a way that suits you. Not depressing gray, functional gray. The gray of efficiency, of buildings designed without excess, of streets that move you from point to point without asking you to notice anything along the way. Your apartment is on the 34th floor. You can see the whole city from here. But you don't see the people. They're too small. Just movement patterns. Data points. This helps. The first 3 months, you let go of 11 people. Not fired. Let go. The language matters. It creates distance, turns termination into something passive. Something that simply happens rather than something you do. You let them go like releasing balloons, like the loosening of a grip that was never that tight to begin with. Some of them cry in your office. A woman named Petra, 52, 20 years with the company. She brings photos of her grandchildren, as if seeing them will activate something in you, will make her more than a line item, and more than a name on a spreadsheet flagged in red. You look at the photos, 2 small faces, gap-toothed smile. You feel nothing. I understand this is difficult, you say. HR will walk you through the transition package. You've gotten good at this. The phrases, the timing, the exact modulation of voice that conveys seriousness without opening any door to negotiation. You've learned that kindness here would be cruelty. It would give people hope, make them think there's something to appeal to, some soft center that might reverse the decision. There isn't. After Petra leaves, her shoulders shaking, her hand pressed over her mouth, you spend 11 seconds looking at the closed door. You're checking for something. Some residue of feeling. Some echo of the person you were when other people's pain could enter you. Could change the texture of your day. The door is just a door. You turn back to your computer, and the next name on the list is James. He has 3 kids. You know this because he mentioned it in the all-hands meeting, nervous laughter, something about hoping this job sticks because diapers aren't cheap. You send him a meeting invite for 2 p.m. Your mother calls on your birthday. You're 31. The number feels abstract, belonging to someone else's life. She sings into the phone, off-key, the way she's done every year since you were small. You can hear your father in the background, the one who came back 5 years after leaving, diminished, apologetic, reabsorbed into the family like he'd never torn a hole through its center. "We miss you," your mother says. "When are you coming home?" Home. The word activates nothing. You try to locate the feeling it should produce: warmth, longing, the pull toward origin. Instead, there's just geography. A place where people you're related to continue existing, continue aging, continue generating expectations you're supposed to meet. "Soon," you say. "Things are busy." You always say that. Her voice carries hurt. A practiced hurt, weaponized, designed to activate guilt. You note it the way you note everything now. Cataloged, filed. Manipulation tactic. Guilt induction through repetition of grievance. "I know," you say. "I'm sorry." You're not sorry. The word is a function, a sound that creates temporary peace, that ends conversations, that prevents the escalation into territory you don't have time for. "Your sister's engaged," your mother says. "Did she tell you?" She didn't. You haven't spoken to your sister in 4 months. There was no falling out, no dramatic rupture, just a gradual reduction of contact, text messages spaced further and further apart, until silence became the default. "That's wonderful," you say. "Tell her congratulations." "You should call her yourself. She'd love to hear from you." "Would she?" You're not sure. You're not sure what anyone feels about you anymore. Because you've stopped generating the data that would tell you. No calls means no reactions to interpret. No visits means no facial expressions to read. You've achieved a kind of informational quarantine, a state in which other people's emotional lives can't reach you because you've severed the channels of transmission. "I will," you say. You won't. The call ends with love yous that feel like contractual obligations. You set the phone down. Return to your laptop. The quarterly report needs editing. There's a board presentation on Thursday. Real things. Quantifiable things. Things that don't require you to feel. You don't think about your mother's voice again that day. You don't notice that you don't think about it. This is the mechanism, working as designed. 6 months into the role, Victoria flies in for a review. You take her to dinner at a restaurant where the tables are far apart, where the lighting suggests intimacy while providing none. She orders whiskey. You order the same. Mirror neurons, still functional, still useful for building rapport even as everything else goes quiet. "You've exceeded expectations," she says. "The efficiency numbers are remarkable." You nod. You've stopped feeling pleasure at praise, but you recognize its utility. Praise means continued access. Continued access means continued power. The equation is simple. "There was concern," Victoria continues, "that you might be too..." She pauses, the same way she paused in her office a year ago. Too connected to people, to the emotional side. The emotional side. Like it's a neighborhood she doesn't visit, a district zoned for others. "I compartmentalize well," you say. You do. She studies you over the rim of her glass. Better than most. Better than I expected. There's something in her eyes that looks almost like warmth, or maybe recognition, and the identification of a similar species. "Can I ask you something?" you say. "Go ahead." Was it always like this for you? Or did it change? She takes a long drink. The ice shifts in her glass, a sound like small bones settling. I remember caring, she says, when I was younger. Other people's problems used to keep me up at night. I'd carry them with me, let them interfere. The word interfere falls from her mouth like something rotted. Then I realize something. All that feeling, it wasn't helping anyone. It was just making me less effective, less capable of actually changing things. So you stopped. I optimized. She sets down her glass. You learned to see empathy for what it is. A biological response, useful in certain contexts, counterproductive in others. Once you understand that it's just chemistry, just electrical signals, you can manage it. Turn it up when it's strategic. Turn it down when it's not. You think about this, from the reduction of empathy to mechanism, a dial you can adjust, a resource you can allocate. And you don't miss it, you ask? The feeling of connection? Victoria smiles. It's a different smile than the one in her office, softer, but somehow colder. Connection is overrated, she says. What people really want is someone who makes them feel seen. That's a performance. You can learn it. And once you learn it, you can do it without any of the... She waves her hand vaguely. Spillage. Spillage. The word stays with you. The idea that emotion is excess, overflow, something that escapes the system and causes inefficiency. The waiter arrives. You order another round. The conversation shifts to forecasts, strategies, the next quarter's objectives. But you keep thinking about spillage, about all the places in you where things used to leak, and how dry everything has become. You see Elena one more time. She's visiting her sister in the city, and texts you with an energy that feels imported from another era. Exclamation points, emoji, the linguistic register of someone who still uses communication for joy rather than function. You meet at a coffee shop. Her choice. Somewhere warm and cluttered, mismatched chairs, art on the walls, the smell of something baking. She looks the same, maybe a little tired. Her job at the nonprofit became her job at a different nonprofit. The funding crises migrated with her. The families in need multiplied like cells dividing. She hugs you when she sees you. You note the pressure of her arms, the duration of the embrace, the small sounds she makes. Something between greeting and relief. You produce the appropriate physical response. Arms around her, a gentle squeeze, the timing you've observed in other embraces, deployed now with precision. She pulls back, looks at you. God, it's good to see you. You too. You sit, order coffee. The conversation begins. She talks about her life, the nonprofit work, a man she's seeing, kind, complicated, recently divorced. Her mother's health issues, minor but worrying. The political situation, the ways it's affecting the people she serves, the daily accumulation of small tragedies she tries to mitigate. You listen. You've always been good at listening. The stillness of your face, the occasional nod, the mem sounds that signal continued attention. These are techniques now. Refined. Deployed. But Elena is good at reading people, better than most. Halfway through her sentence about the refugee family she's been working with, she stops. You're not here, she says. What do you mean? You're not here. She gestures at the space between you. You're doing the listening thing, the nodding thing, but you're... I don't know. You're somewhere else. You consider denial. It would be easy. A simple, I'm sorry, work's been crazy, I'm a little distracted. The excuse she'd accept because she wants to accept it. But something in her eyes stops you, something that looks like grief. I don't know what you mean, you say anyway. Yes, you do. She wraps her hands around her coffee cup. Her fingers are thin, bare of rings. Something's different. Something's been different for a while. The way you talk, the way you respond. She trails off, searching for words. It's like talking to a really good recording of you. Everything's right, but nothing's real. You feel a flicker of something. Irritation, maybe. The frustration of being seen when you didn't ask to be. I've been working hard, you say. The new role is demanding. It's not that. She shakes her head. It's like, remember when we used to talk? Really talk? You'd get upset about things, angry about injustice, sad about random strangers' pain. You cried once because you saw an old man eating alone at a diner, cried. You remember this. The man's hands, and shaking slightly as he lifted his coffee cup. The vacancy in his eyes. The whole story you'd constructed about his life, his loneliness. The wife who must have died and left him eating dinner in a booth by himself. You'd wept. In the car. For 20 minutes. The memory feels archaeological. Something you'd have to dig for. People change, you say. They do. She looks at you with something that might be mourning. But this doesn't feel like change. This feels like something got removed. You should feel accused, defensive, something. Instead, you calculate the likelihood that this conversation will become a problem, the resources required to manage Elena's perception going forward, the cost-benefit of maintaining this relationship versus allowing it to naturally dissolve. I'm fine, you say. Better than fine? My career is going well. I'm taking care of myself. I just don't have the bandwidth for. You pause, selecting the word carefully, for carrying everything the way I used to. Everything. Other people's pain. The weight of things I can't control. It was exhausting. It wasn't helping anyone. Elena is quiet for a long moment. It was helping you be human, she says finally. The words land somewhere in you. Not deep, surface level where things still register as language before being filed away. But there's a small flare, a brief heat, something that might be recognition. I think we just see things differently now, you say. She nods slowly. Her coffee is getting cold. Neither of you will finish your drinks. I miss you, she says. The old you? The one who felt things. I feel things. But you hear it even as you say it, the flatness, the absence of evidence. Okay, she says. She doesn't believe you. You can see that clearly. Okay. The conversation continues for another 15 minutes. You discuss logistics, her flight, your schedule, the abstract possibility of meeting again, someday when timing allows. When she hugs you goodbye, you feel her lingering, holding on a second longer than necessary. You wonder if she's hoping to feel something transfer, some warmth, some current, some evidence that you're still in there. You give her the appropriate pressure, the appropriate duration. Then she lets go. You never see her again. At night, sometimes, you catch yourself. It happens in the space between waking and sleeping. It's when the machinery quiets down and there's nothing to optimize, nothing to calculate. You lie in your gray apartment, 34 floors above the city, and you perform a kind of inventory. The people you've stopped calling, the birthdays you've stopped remembering, the news stories you scroll past without that old ache, that old bleeding into. The homeless man on the corner you've stopped seeing, literally stopped seeing. Your eyes trained now to skip past inconvenient stimuli. You think about how easy it's become, how frictionless. You think about the words Victoria used, spillage, the idea that feeling was just leakage, inefficiency, a failure of containment. You've become so well contained. Nothing spills, nothing leaks. But in these moments, in the dark, something surfaces that you can't quite name. Not guilt, not exactly. Guilt requires a sense of violation, a recognition that something was wrong. This isn't that. It's more like noticing an absence. Like walking through a house you once lived in and seeing the places where furniture used to be. You don't miss the furniture exactly. You've learned to walk around the empty spaces. But something in you remembers that the room was once fuller. You had a capacity once, a permeability. Other people's pain could enter you, could live in you for hours or days, could change what you did and who you were. You remember this the way you remember childhood, distantly, without emotional charge. The capacity is still there, technically, buried, available in emergencies maybe, the way an atrophied muscle can still fire under sufficient duress. But you've stopped exercising it. You've stopped wanting to exercise it. And that, you realize, is the thing you can't quite sit with. Not that empathy became inconvenient. That convenience became enough of a reason to let it go. The morning meeting runs long. A younger employee, new, eager, not yet optimized, is presenting quarterly results that fall short of projections. You can see the fear in his face, the accommodation he's hoping to receive, the humanity he's bringing to a room that has no use for it. You remember being this person. You remember believing that sincerity mattered, that showing your work, your effort, your genuine investment would count for something, that the people above you were watching for evidence of care, of commitment, and of what used to be called character. You watch him stumble through his explanation. You feel nothing, not sympathy, not impatience, not even the distant echo of solidarity. Just the assessment, the calculation, the conclusion forming itself automatically, not a long-term fit. After the meeting, Victoria catches your eye. "What did you think?" she asks. You know what she's asking. Not for your opinion on the numbers, for your verdict on the person. "He's working hard," you say. "No, that's not what I asked." You pause. The younger employee is still gathering his materials across the room, nervous hands, a slight tremor in his shoulders. "He doesn't have the resilience for this level," you say. "The emotional regulation. He's going to burn out or melt down." Victoria nods. "I agree. Handle it. Handle it. You will. You'll call him into your office. Use the phrases you've refined through repetition. Speak at the right pace, with the right intonation, and watch his face pass through shock, then denial, then the beginning of grief. You'll feel nothing, or almost nothing. There's something now, in this moment before, a faint whisper at the edge of consciousness, a voice you almost recognize, asking a question you don't want to hear. Is this who you wanted to become? But the whisper is faint, and the meeting is over. And there are things to do. You cross the room to schedule the conversation. The whisper fades. By noon, and you've forgotten it was ever there. The dream comes on a Tuesday. You don't often remember dreams anymore. Sleep has become another optimized function, precise, efficient, restorative without being eventful. but this one stays. You're in a room that might be your childhood bedroom. The light is wrong, too yellow, like a photograph developing badly. There's someone sitting on the bed, in the way of dreams, that this is yourself, a younger self, 10, maybe 11. But the younger you is crying, not dramatic sobs, the quiet kind, the kind where tears just fall, and the shoulders shake slightly, and there's no sound because the sound has been trained out already. You stand in the doorway. You watch. In the dream, you're supposed to go to this child. You're supposed to kneel down, put a hand on those shaking shoulders, say something kind. This is the script. This is what the dream is asking you to do. But you don't move. You stand there, in the doorway, and you watch the child cry. And you feel what you feel in meetings now, in difficult conversations, in all the moments where someone's pain presents itself for acknowledgement. Nothing. Inconvenient. The dream shifts. The child looks up, meets your eyes. The expression on that face is something you can't quite read. Not accusation, not sadness. Recognition. The child knows what you've become, what you're becoming, the trajectory you've locked yourself into, the places that are closing on a one by one, like doors down a long hallway. You wake up. The clock reads 3:47 a.m. The city glitters outside your window, 34 floors of distance between you and the lives being lived down there. You stare at the ceiling. You try to summon the feeling you had in the dream, the recognition in those young eyes, the weight of being seen. Nothing. Just the faint awareness that something just happened, that it might have mattered, that you can no longer tell. You get the next promotion, one and the one after that. Your name appears in internal communications with increasing frequency. People you don't know reference your strategies, your frameworks, your approach. You've become a case study, a model. At industry events, younger employees approach you. They want to know your secret, how you stay so calm, how you make the hard decisions without visible wear, how you seem so untouched by the emotional wreckage that leadership inevitably requires. It's about boundaries, you tell them, knowing what's yours to carry and what isn't. They nod. They take notes. They look at you with something like admiration. You don't tell them what it costs. You don't know what it costs. That's the thing. The exchange happens so gradually, in such small increments, that there's no moment you can point to and say, this is where I traded it in. No transaction, just erosion, just the slow wearing down of a capacity you used to take for granted. You used to feel other people's pain like weather, something that happened to you, that moved through you, that changed the shape of your hours. Now other people's pain is information, data to be processed, accounted for, managed. You're not a monster. You know this. Monsters enjoy suffering. You don't enjoy anything. You just move through, efficiently, without spillage sometimes, in quiet moments. You wonder if there's a way back, if the capacity is dormant or dead. If something could happen, some shock, some loss, some rupture, that would tear open the containment and let everything flood back in. You wonder if you would even want that. The question doesn't resolve. You don't let it. There's always another meeting, always another decision, always another person in your office needing something from you that you no longer have to give. You give them the performance instead. It's enough. It has to be enough. The alternative is a kind of accounting you're not prepared to do. You're 43 years old. Your mother has been dead for 2 years. You went to the funeral. You said the words. You received the embraces, produced the appropriate facial expressions, stayed exactly as long as was expected. You did not cry. Not because you were holding back. Not because the grief was too private to display. Because there was no grief. Just the recognition that a relationship had ended, that certain obligations had been lifted, that a category of phone calls would no longer occur. Your father sends Christmas cards. You send them back. The exchange is annual, perfunctory, emptied of everything except the motion itself. Your sister had 2 children. You've met them once. They were small and loud and needed things. Attention, engagement, the particular kind of presence that children require from adults. You produced what you could. You left early. Elena, you heard, got married. Someone from her non-profit world. A man who cries at movies, according to the mutual friend who mentioned it. A man whose emotional life is still porous, still permeable, still allowing other people's experiences to enter and change him. You felt something, hearing this. A small flicker, recognition maybe, of the life you didn't choose, of the capacity you let atrophy, of the person you might have been in some other timeline, yes, where empathy remained something worth the inconvenience. But the flicker faded. It always fades. You're good at your job. You're respected in your field. You've accumulated resources, access, influence. By every metric that matters, you've succeeded. You don't miss what you've lost. You can't miss it. You can't even remember, most days, what it felt like. This is the quiet part, the part no one tells you about. The part where you realize that the absence of pain is not the presence of anything else. Where efficiency delivers you to a room that's perfectly organized and perfectly empty. Where you've optimized away every inconvenience, including the inconvenient truth that other people are real. That their suffering matters. That your response to their suffering was, for a long time, the most human thing about you. You sit in your office. The city sprawls below, full of people you'll never meet, carrying griefs you'll never feel, living lives that will never penetrate the containment you've built. You're safe in here, untouched, efficient. And somewhere, in a room you can no longer access, a younger version of you is still crying, waiting for someone to come, waiting for you to cross the room, to kneel down, to say, I see you. I feel this. You're not alone. You don't go. You never go. You turn back to your screen. There's work to do. There's always work to do. And an empathy, that old inconvenience, stays where you left it. Somewhere you no longer visit. Somewhere you've forgotten how to find.